Have you ever just stopped and wondered how on earth educators tackle something as incredibly complex as teaching a completely new language from scratch? I mean, think about it. All that vocabulary, the tricky grammar rules, the pronunciation. How do you take all of that and actually turn it into a step-by-step journey for a learner?
Well, it certainly doesn't happen by accident, right? And it's definitely not just about handing someone a dictionary and hoping for the best. The solution is actually this intricate, masterfully designed architectural blueprint. And today, we're going to decode exactly what goes into that master plan.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am genuinely thrilled to be unpacking this academic theory with you all today. We're going to look under the hood of language education to see the exact components that make up a language syllabus. Whether you're an educator, a language learner, or honestly just someone fascinated by how systems work, this is going to totally change how you view your time in the classroom.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make things incredibly clear, our explainer is organized exactly like a syllabus itself. We've got 6 main sections on our roadmap today: curriculum versus syllabus, foundations of a syllabus, skills and functions, executing the syllabus, the functional-notional approach, and finally, the grammatical syllabus. Let's get to it.
Section 1, curriculum versus syllabus explained. The macro versus the micro. Let's start with the widest lens possible here, just to get our bearings. Now, people often use the words curriculum and syllabus interchangeably, but in the educational world, they represent 2 very different levels of planning. Think of the curriculum as the overarching architectural blueprint for an entire city. It's broad, it's long-term, and it outlines the entire program's goals. The syllabus, on the other hand, is like the detailed floor plan for just a single building in that city. It's narrow, it's short-term, and it outlines the day-to-day operations of a single course.
The contrast here is pretty stark. A curriculum is prepared by educational authorities and focuses on long-term goals for an entire degree or program, which makes it, much less flexible. But a syllabus, that's often crafted by the teachers or the departments themselves. It focuses on weekly topics and specific assignments, usually lasting just a semester or a year. And that gives the instructor the flexibility to adapt to the learner's needs. So in short, the curriculum is the big picture, and the syllabus is your detailed day-to-day roadmap.
Moving on to Section 2, Foundations of a Language Syllabus, Goals and Content. Now that we know what a syllabus actually is, let's look at its core building blocks. Everything starts right here. As the linguist David Noonan defined it back in 1988, a syllabus is a specification of the content of a course of instruction and lists what will be taught and tested. Notice the precision there. A good syllabus begins by establishing really clear aims, which are broad purposes, like developing communicative competence. Then it sets specific, measurable objectives, like students will be able to write a formal email. And those objectives literally dictate absolutely everything else that follows.
And this brilliantly illustrates the next foundational block, the language content itself. You can think of this as a pie with 3 essential slices. First, you need grammar, which provides the structural rules, like your tenses. Then you need vocabulary, the actual words you're going to use. And crucially, you need pronunciation. For example, a syllabus might specifically carve out time to teach the pronunciation difference between a short I and a long E, like the difference between saying ship and sheep. This content provides the absolute linguistic foundation for all communication.
Section 3, Skills, Functions, and Notions, the communication mechanics. Because once you have that linguistic foundation, you need the active components to actually put it to use.
Let's start with functions. Now, this can sometimes be kind of a confusing concept for folks, but basically functions are the practical actions we take when we speak. It's what learners actually do with the language. Are they greeting someone? Apologizing for being late? Making a request? Suggesting a restaurant? Those are all functions.
Then we have notions. If functions are the actions, notions are the underlying ideas or concepts that give our functions specific meaning. Notions are things like expressing time, determining a quantity, establishing a location, or indicating frequency. It's the context behind the action.
Let's look at how these combine perfectly to prepare learners for everyday situations. Let's say your function is requesting. You might teach the phrase, "Could you help me?" And if the notion you're teaching is time, you teach words like tomorrow. Combine them, and suddenly your student can successfully navigate the real-world scenario of saying, "Could you help me tomorrow?" This is exactly how a syllabus transforms abstract grammar into highly functional daily survival skills.
Okay, Section 4, Executing the Language Syllabus, From Theory to Practice. A syllabus, obviously, has to dictate classroom reality. from teaching methods to textbooks. But perhaps the most vital part of its execution is sequencing.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how proper sequencing actually reveals the psychology of teaching. A good syllabus doesn't just throw information at a learner. Proper sequencing carefully guides the journey without totally overwhelming them. The progression is almost always Step 1, simple to complex. Step 2, known to unknown. Step 3, easy to difficult. For instance, you teach the simple present tense way before you ever introduce the future perfect continuous. It's all about building that confidence systematically.
Section 5, the functional-notional syllabus. Focus on meaning. So let's look at the first of two major real-world models. Instead of organizing around rigid grammar rules, this syllabus builds units around what learners do in everyday life, like ordering food at a restaurant.
While this approach is highly valued for its focus on real communication, it's important we impartially look at the scholarly criticisms of this model. First off, functions can be pretty difficult to define and sequence. Like, if you're teaching how to invite someone, should you teach the formal or the informal way first? They can honestly feel a bit arbitrary. Scholars also note that teaching discrete functions can sometimes misrepresent natural, flowing conversation, and it can actually confuse beginners who might really need explicit grammar rules to lean on at first. Plus, functions like complaining or apologizing vary wildly across different cultures, which can make this syllabus tricky to implement in highly diverse classrooms.
Section 6, the grammatical syllabus. Structure first. This brings us to the alternative model, which takes the completely opposite approach. Also known as the structural syllabus, this method organizes everything strictly around grammar rules in a predetermined linear sequence.
Let's move on and see how this builds. This highly linear, structured progression is likely super familiar to anyone who has endured the trauma of a traditional high school language class and its endless verb tables. Unit 1 is the simple present tense. Master that, and boom, you unlock Unit 2, present continuous. Then Unit 3, simple past, and so on. It is incredibly systematic, highly organized, and very easy for educators to test and evaluate.
So the crucial point here is understanding the academic consensus on the weaknesses of this structural approach. Critics argue that by prioritizing form over natural communication, learners might memorize all the rules but then completely freeze up in a real conversation. Furthermore, language acquisition research suggests our brains just don't actually learn languages in this rigid, one grammar rule at a time order. While a grammatical syllabus greatly improves accuracy, it often really weakens fluency. Students become so focused on avoiding mistakes that they lose the natural rhythm of speech, which can ultimately crush their motivation to keep learning.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think back to your own experiences sitting in a classroom. When you look at the way you speak a second language today, whether you're highly accurate but maybe a bit hesitant, or super fluent but making grammatical mistakes, which type of syllabus do you think shaped you? Was it the meaning-driven, functional-notional blueprint, or the rigid structure of the grammatical plan? It's pretty fascinating how a document drafted by an educator years ago continues to frame the way we communicate with the world today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning how you learn, and I'll catch you on the next one.